start our show right here. Rarely do buyout players make big impacts, but two headliners over the weekend might be the exception to that. You got two-time All-Star Andre Drummond heading to the Lakers, seven-time All-Star LaMarcus Aldridge joining an already stacked Brooklyn Nets team. Conversation pieces. Nick, let's kick it off with you. Which team's new addition you think gets them closer to a title?
Well, I think, Jenna, your point is a very relevant one, which is it is an incredibly short list of buyout guys who have actually ended up being anything close to difference makers on finalists, much less title teams. But if I have to choose between the two, I would say Drummond, because right now the Lakers are so shorthanded, and even when they're not shorthanded, he's going to be the starting center. And on the Nets side of things, I don't totally understand what they're doing, because I understand LaMarcus Aldridge has had a wonderful NBA career, but that doesn't change the fact that at the present moment, he is a bad NBA player. When you see guys bought out, it's typically like the Blake Griffin or Andre Drummond situations, meaning expensive, aging guys near the end of their contracts on terrible teams that would rather play young guys that aren't trying to make the playoffs and want to save a few $1 million. LaMarcus Aldridge just got bought out from a playoff team and hasn't played in a few weeks for a playoff team, which I think speaks to what he's able to do at this point of his career. And so, Brandon, I don't know what he adds to the Nets aside from name recognition, and I don't know if you agree with me on this. I do think Steve Nash's job just keeps getting harder and harder. For a first-time head coach, it's now like, well, Nick Claxton probably helps us more than LaMarcus Aldridge, but right. LaMarcus Aldridge chose us. He was recruited by us. Do I need to play him? So I don't think either one of these guys is a huge move. I understand the Drummond move a lot more than I understand the LaMarcus Aldridge move.
I agree, and to answer the question quickly, Jenna, it's definitely the Lakers. Drummond comes in, he gives you 17 points, he gives you 13 rebounds off the bench. Well, Nick says he's going to start. He probably will start, absolutely. So that's what he gives you, and he's 27 years of age. This dude can come in and help out a Lakers team that is depleted, help out a Lakers team that is struggling at the big position. You look at Gasol. Gasol was to come in and help, and he didn't. But to your point, Nick, I was smiling because everyone else on TV right now is talking about the Nets and how they're trying to buy themselves a championship. Look at all the moves they're making. What happened to competition? And I was ready to come on here today and talk about, well, the Nets was already in prime position. You add Aldridge and you even go back to the Griffin move. These dudes are aging players. We're talking about guys who aren't even averaging 14 points a game. So, you don't understand what they're doing. I do. They're adding depth. They're adding depth, so if one of those guys go down, they'll be able to hold up the ship. That's all this is a depth play. These guys come in, they got high IQ, they can add a little bit of something in the rotation on the defensive side, and they're turning into shooters, Griffin and Aldridge. So you got guys that can come in and hit a shot in the corner. You got guys that can come in and can add 10 points here, 12 points there, but that's it. Everybody else want to talk about the Nets and how they're buying a championship. I'm not buying that.
Yeah, the Griffin and Aldridge moves are good Rorschach tests for people on television over whether or not they actually watch the NBA. If you went on TV when they got Griffin, or now once they've added Aldridge, and are acting like the Nets added 2 more All-Stars, it flatly means you haven't watched the Pistons or the Spurs all year long. So I fervently and totally agree with you on that point, Brandon. But Wilds, I want your take on how you think this is going to affect the politics inside the Nets locker room. When you've got guys who, with KD out and with Kyrie on his second sabbatical, have stepped up, have stepped into roles like Nick Claxton, who I mentioned. We've talked about TLC in the past. Bruce Brown has actually been a revelation in the last month or so. And those guys, I think, add more to winning than Griffin or Aldridge, but I would imagine there's going to be pressure on Nash in his first playoffs ever as a coach to bump those guys down the rotation in favor of the names Blake Griffin and certainly the name LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, but do you think that Blake has been an issue? I mean, granted, Kyrie hasn't been around and Durant hasn't been around, but it feels like Blake is happy with his role, and I assume LaMarcus Aldridge will be happy with his role. He chose the Nets with eyes wide open, Nick. So I would think that Steve Nash knows that the big three get the majority of the minutes, and aging superstars know they're aging superstars. And I think they would be happy with what? 20 minutes a game, 12 minutes a game. You got to see DeAndre Jordan's minutes go down. Sometimes he plays 20, sometimes he plays 12. I think they'd be totally happy with 15 minutes a game and sort of like contribute. The question for you, Nick, is this. Do you consider LaMarcus Aldridge's move ring chasing? Do you consider Blake Griffin's move ring chasing, or just like, I want to be part of this team environment?
Oh, I do. I think it's clearly and obviously ring chasing, but I also don't think that's a... Yeah, I don't think that's a pejorative, though. I don't think that's a problem. That's not a slur I'm throwing at him. I think guys who have played this long and not been able to get over the top, if it's like, okay, I'm now in a different phase of my career, going to the place they're most likely to be able to go to a finals and win a championship, they feel, I think is smart. I can give a little bit of news here. I don't know if this classifies as news or rumors, but whatever it is, I'm going to educate the audience a bit. I heard from two separate front office guys this weekend. The world evidently thinks I'm plugged in with the Lakers when I'm not. I have no idea. I know no one in the Lakers front office. But two separate front office guys this weekend reached out to me asking me if the Lakers were getting Drummond or if Drummond was going to the Nets. And they were asking not along the lines of, because they were worried about the Lakers, these were Eastern Conference folks, because they desperately didn't want Drummond to go to Brooklyn because of what that would do for Brooklyn. I do think, Brandon, buyout guys do have minimal impact, but if you're Brooklyn and you need to go through Giannis and Embiid, potentially both of them, I think of all the buyout guys that they could have added, I think Drummond would have been the best fit for them. So it might actually benefit the Lakers that they got Drummond just to keep him out of Brooklyn. And I don't think Drummond wanted to go to Brooklyn because DeAndre Jordan is, you know, he's been godfathered into 20 minutes a game there. And so he wouldn't necessarily get the time he's going to get with the Lakers.
Well, I want to go back to the first thing you said, Nick. I'm just confused. Why would anybody in America think that you got to end with the Lakers? Why would anybody think that? I mean, you just talk about them every single day. You just stand on the table and talk about LeBron James every single day.
I have an in with some of their players. But I don't have an in with Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka doesn't respond to my texts. There's a difference. You go ahead.
Right. All right, look, LaMarcus Aldridge, he's a good rim protector. He's not a great defender, but he's good. You know, when you think about him being 6'11" and a 7'5" wingspan, this dude, we're not asking for a lot. We just need you just to hold down the paint just a little bit. Because why, Jenna? You got those three dudes on the other side